Hello and welcome to our oiip podcast series, this time with Stefan Elbe, Professor of International Relations at the University of Sussex and the Director of the Center for Global Health Policy. Stefan, you have done a lot of work on global health security. Could you perhaps tell us what does this concept mean and how did it change the international relations in the last decades?
Actually, there is no, agreed definition of global health security. But what it means to me is that all people around the world really have a shared vulnerability to lethal or deadly infectious disease outbreaks. So, global health security refers to a basket of activities that are intended to try to improve the protection of people, families, and communities against the kind of devastation that can be caused by such outbreaks. And I think over the past 20 years, what's really changed is that health has kind of moved to the high table of international politics. So when I was a student many years ago, we hardly talked about health at all. And now it's become really a major diplomatic issue.
Mm-hmm. And what were the decisive turning points? Global health security started with the debates around HIV/AIDS epidemics. Today it's more Ebola and Zika. So what did change in the last 30 years or so?
That's right. So HIV/AIDS was absolutely transformative, and even today we speak about a famous meeting of the United Nations Security Council that happened in the year 2000. This was the first meeting of the Security Council in the 21st century, so it was hugely symbolic, and they talked about HIV/AIDS as a threat to international peace and security in Africa. So this was the major turning point. But since that time, we've had many, many more outbreaks. And also the notion of global health security has expanded quite a bit. So it's also come to encompass the threat of a deliberate attack, like a bioterrorist attack. And increasingly also an accidental release, because there's a lot of research which is also done on pathogens. And so there are also concerns about things just kind of escaping from a laboratory by accident.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the laboratory, in your recent book, you explored also the role of the pharmaceutical companies as an actor in international relations. Can you tell us about this a little bit? What is the precise role of pharmaceutical companies? What are the conflicts and problems that arise with pharmaceutical solutions in global health security?
Absolutely. So one of the things we were trying to understand better in a project that we recently completed at Sussex was what the role of pharmaceuticals are in the area of global health security. And what we found was actually quite a little bit different from what we expected. Because when you look at many governments around the world, they do actually kind of crave pharmaceutical solutions as the kind of ultimate way of dealing with kind of health-based threats to protect their populations and to keep all the circulation of their economy going. But pharmaceutical companies themselves don't actually have a huge financial interest in this area because they are trying to chase the kind of diseases where there's a much bigger commercial market. You have to remember that most pharmaceutical production in the world is done by private industry, so they are driven by market forces. And by and large, they're really not that interested in the area of health security. So governments have had to work quite hard over the past 10 to 20 years to actually try to get pharmaceutical companies to invest more in this area. And the book that I recently published talks about what the challenges are, but also how governments have adapted to kind of procure innovation in this area.
Mm-hmm. What do you think are the main challenges for global health security for scholarship, but also for practice in the next years to come?
So I think there's a kind of famous cliche that we have in global health security, which is that the diseases know no borders, right? But of course, the response does know borders, and so trying to get actors, many different types of actors across different countries and jurisdiction to work together to respond to a disease is a huge diplomatic challenge. And I think often these are portrayed as simply kind of technical challenges or governance challenges. But beneath the surface, there's a lot of power and politics that's actually bubbling along. And a couple times already over the past decade, when people haven't taken those issues of power and sovereignty seriously, there have been huge obstacles to the international response. So I think one of the things that we're trying to do also as an international relations community is to show that there's a big important piece around politics, around sovereignty and diplomacy that is part of actually responding to these kinds of health emergencies.
Thank you so much. Very interesting.
Thank you.